We're not charging for the cucumber, though. At the end of the day, what we're charging for is the experience, the whole experience.
Right. Yeah, it's intellectual property.
They're not supposed to know how hard you worked.
Yeah, it's like, for us, it's like back to the value. And does our experience meet the value? And that's everything from when somebody goes online and looks at our website to when they call in to check and see if it's okay if they're a vegetarian, to when they're greeted and when they get their coat when they're on their way out the door. Like, all of those things add into our total experience, and that justifies our price point.
Right. It would also say the reason why we skew towards higher labor and lower food costs or cost of goods sold is because that's the style of operation Aaron and I want to run. We also feel like, you know, the more oversight you have, the less potential for a subpar product will go onto the dining room floor, right? And we also want to give ourselves enough hands in the front of the house or back of the house to execute the things we want to execute.
Yeah, so we also run basically a zero waste program, so that's why our food cost is lower.
And we can hit it. Yeah.
Because that program that we run, but that costs labor to run a zero waste program.
Yeah. This episode made possible by Restaurant Systems Pro. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, chef partners of Lazy Betty, Ron Hsu and Aaron Phillips. My gentlemen, are we feeling unstoppable today?
Totally unstoppable.
Yeah.
Can't stop it, man. Let's keep it going.
Dude, I'm so psyched to be here. I feel like really lucky that this happened to fall on my lap while I was about to go through Atlanta. Congratulations on the Michelin star. Congratulations on the success you're having and what you're doing here. I can't wait to dive into who you guys are and how you got to where you are today. But let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
You can go first, Aaron.
I'd like to always just say, when I'm talking to the team, just do the next right thing. I feel like, you know, if you just focus on doing the next right thing, then everything else will always fall into order.
I dig that.
Yeah.
I love that. What do you got?
Mine would be just be better today than you were yesterday.
Okay.
The goal isn't to be the best, just be better.
1% better every day. It's definitely one of those signs of just the most successful people out there and never stop learning, always sharpening the saw. So before we kind of dive into where you are today and how you got to where you are today, paint that picture of where today is. What is Lazy Betty?
I'll start off. I think we're kind of, you know, in terms of looking at it very abstractly, I would say we're more still growing. I would say we're not babies, but maybe infants now. We've been around for just over 6 years. We recently moved locations right about a year ago, and my God, that went by super fast. But if you know, when Aaron and I did the Cayman Cookout back in January with some pretty famous chefs, and you're looking at their track record of like 25 to 35 years, and we're like, man, we're just starting.
Yeah,
so
I love that.
Yeah,
and I mean, you guys aren't just starting. Like you worked for some pretty great names in the industry. You're a pretty well-regarded chef experience before getting to this point, correct? We'll get into a little bit of that. And today, Lazy Betty is one location, 78 seats with the core dining room. Private, this is more like what would you call this space?
It's a semi-private
/
extension of our dining room.
And then there's a private over.
Yeah.
So I would love to get into like the economics of how you're using your space. I know private dining is huge, and that's really in fine dining where the money is. So I'm sure we can learn something about that. Can we talk? I think your publicist gave you the warning that I like to talk numbers.
Yeah,
right?
let's talk numbers.
Can we talk percent profit? What are you doing for percent profit?
You know, looking at our year-end P&L, we were right under 10%.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good and I think this is something that people don't understand. In the world of fine dining, if you're doing near 10%, you're doing something. Do you disagree or agree with that statement?
I mean, I would say restaurants in general, not just fine dining.
Yeah.
My siblings own some restaurants. Aaron knows some other restaurateurs, and you know, we would say 10% is very good, especially if you're looking at post-COVID, a post-COVID market.
Yeah, and I think you hear a lot of the narrative of 15 to 20% being pushed out there, and I think that's achievable. You have to do a lot of volume. When you're doing fine dining, prefix meals, like it gets harder and harder to do that.
It's hard to provide the value at 20%.
Right.
The cost of production is so high that to take the care with the product and to bring the right product in to begin with, those sort of cogs.
Right. Can we talk prime costs? Sorry.
Yeah. Prime costs. So we try to keep it around 60%.
Okay. So, and what were you saying before I interrupted you? Sorry.
Oh, I don't remember.
So 60%. And I mean, I guess the other variable here too is if you're a Michelin star restaurant, I'm sure you're not the cheapest place in town to eat, right? So you have to find that sweet spot of like, you don't want to be outpriced, but you still want to make, hit your targets. And that's a very hard, especially in a market where there's constantly moving targets with cost of goods going up, labor going up and stuff like that. So,
yeah, I mean, I would say Aaron and I always priority is value. Right. If we happen to be the most expensive restaurant, I think we were up until about maybe 2.5 to 3 years ago. We were the most expensive.
Sushi town in opened up.
Yeah. I think you interviewed one of our friends, Fred Castellucci.
He's awesome.
He took the reins on that. But for Aaron and I, it's always about value. If we are able to find an amazing product and put our Lazy Betty spin on it, as you will, and offer the right elements in service and beverage, and we think the value is reflective of the price, and we're okay rolling out the price at whatever we feel it's warranted at.
Got it. So in terms of like the mix, the product mix, the marketing mix, 78 seats. How many seats are your like core dining room?
We're at about 40 total.
Okay.
In the main dining room.
All prefix.
Yeah.
And in terms of the split in revenue from full service prefix to like private events, how's that bounce out?
I would say the private events is not as robust as you would probably find in larger markets like New York City or Chicago or San Fran. I think our private events numbers constituted around 8 to 10% of our overall revenue.
Okay.
But that being said, that's year one of having PDR availability. We didn't used to have a private dining space. And so, we're really starting from zero, building that sort of clientele.
So you got this in 2024.
Yeah, we moved in here March of 2024. In our previous space, the private event / normal dining room sales was even more wide, right? And we also did not sell private events for the first 3 months we were in the new space just because we didn't want to bite off more than we could chew, right? There was a lot of settling in to do, table adjustments, and messing with the reservation times, and to throw private events into that mix, we don't.
Smart.
Yeah, we always prioritize quality and standard, and as soon as we feel like we can expand our operations but still maintain that level of quality, then that's when we make the move. Yeah,
and these are the things that aren't really like common knowledge out there in the world of fine dining, and like you can't just like slam a hammer and have everything happen at once. You really gotta, especially if you're trying to like if your livelihood hinges on experience and quality. Like you can't rush the process. You have to kind of slowly turn up the volume as you go.
I mean, you're absolutely right. Yeah. And I know this podcast is more about numbers, the business side of things. One expense that restaurants like Lazy Betty has that the majority of other restaurants don't have is they don't allocate money to the R&D process or the process of like, let's figure this out. Like Aaron wanted to put a new dish on the menu 2 months ago when we rolled out two tasting menus, and he all of a sudden just dropped almost $1,000 on a leg of Iberico.
It's not hard to do.
No, and we're like $1,000. That's what some restaurants do in one day in sales, right? Yeah. And we're like, well, we got to figure out how to do this dish. We're going to figure it out. So,
yeah, I love it. So, okay, now that we have an idea of who we're talking to, let's go back. Let's reverse engineer how you got here. I don't want to spend a lot of time in the past, but I do want to get an idea. I know you guys cross paths at Bernadin, correct?
Yes.
With Eric Repair.
Mm-hmm.
Who's like? I guess let's go with H. Who's the
I'm the older one. So the bromance started at Bernadin. I think I was already a sous chef when Aaron started, and Aaron was a stage, came in. I mean, the dude showed a lot of heart, showed a lot of cooking acumen, and he just seemed like a cool dude. And I generally don't fraternize with stages or new cooks, but we clicked, and
got it.
And he wasn't, even though he was new on the scene at Bernadin, he was not a new cook, right? He had his resume in a lot of ways outshines my resume. and we just related, and I was like, hey man, you seem like a good cook. Let's go hang out and get some beer in K-Town after service tonight and see your thoughts on Le Bernadin. And it kind of started from there.
Yeah. What year was this?
I started in 2007, so I'm going to say 2009 or 10.
This is 2009.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you opened this location in
19.
2019. So this is 10 years before you go into business together.
Yeah.
How long were you at Le Bernadin?
I was at Le Bernadin across 2 stints. One, the highest position I attained was executive sous chef / chef consultant. I wore many hats at Le Bernadin, and then I left to to try my hand at an executive chef job somewhere else in New York City. I didn't really like that restaurant and the type of food and all that I was doing, so I went back to Le Bernadin as the creative director. And so total time spent was about 7.5 years.
What's the difference between a creative director and executive chef?
I mean, I was creative director and executive chef. I mean, executive chef, you're running the show.
You're looking at the numbers, you're ordering, you're like
you know the operations inside and out. Whereas creative director is more like, what do you want? How do you want to mold the menu? What techniques do you want to emphasize? What products do you want to emphasize? Is the mantra of the restaurant being expressed through the creative process? And then how do you integrate the creative ideas into operations?
Sounds like a CEO.
Kind of like the CEO. Yeah.
So if that was your role, what was Eric Repair's role?
I mean, he was the shareholders, basically. Like, I don't like this, or
he's also paid his dues at this point.
I mean,
right?
he heavily influenced the creative process. Some of it was led by him. Some of it was also, if I had an idea, I was like, Chef, Repair this. I think this could work. He'd be like, go for it. I would present ideas to him, and he'd be like, well, let's tweak this. Let's do that. He had a much higher level view of the operations and the business. So he would look at things like, well, Ron, this is delicious, but it doesn't really quite work with the wine pairing. You would have to pair this with the Riesling, and we already have a Riesling on the tasting menu. Let's pivot in this direction.
How do you take like feedback like that? Does it kind of sting sometimes? You gotta get excited about something, and a stupid pairing might blow your idea.
I mean, it is what it is. You know, in almost any field, you're getting criticized, especially now in 2025. You have Yelp, you have Google reviews, you have the Michelin.
If you don't
Guide,
like
James
feedback,
Beard.
don't get involved.
Yeah, like first and foremost, we're servants of the community.
Yeah,
right. We're not doing this for myself or for Aaron's palate. For example, I don't like lobster, but we put lobster on the menu because we know guests will love it. I love to cook with lobster, but I never order lobster when I go out. So first and foremost, you have to have that mindset. Like, this is not for me. This is for other people. And if the people you're doing it for don't like it, you have to be able to take it constructively and grow from it.
Yeah. We haven't gotten back into your story, Aaron, but as Ron is sharing anything you want to contribute or thoughts coming through your head?
Well, no, I mean, I'm enjoying listening, first of all. I was just waiting for you to ask me some questions.
Great for the feedback. I love the feedback. Thank you.
But I'm just enjoying listening.
Yeah,
and
I haven't forgotten about you. I do want to get to you.
Oh, yeah. No. All's good. I'm just enjoying the moment.
So when did you leave Le Bernadin, Ron?
To come open Lazy Betty?
Yeah.
I left in 2016. I left to move back to Atlanta.
And opened Lazy Betty in 2018.
19.
It took 3 years.
It took me 3 years to figure out what I was doing. And and to be honest, that transition from being a craftsman, like in terms of a chef, into a business owner or entrepreneur was probably the hardest evolution that I've had to accomplish in my career.
Do you have it in your book?
No, this book is more about recipes, not about my
teaser
career, my career path. But just saying, like that is probably the hardest transition or evolving I've had to do. And then once the business was open, and then I had to run the business with Aaron, me going from being an executive chef to business owner was probably the next hardest evolution. Right, and it's like you said. I think we talked about this while you're setting up. You got to constantly evolve, right? And grow and be able to move with the environment around you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's bookmark there. Pivot to Aaron. Aaron, what were you doing? How much age difference is between the two of you guys?
6 years.
6 years? Okay, got it. So in 2009 is when you crossed paths. how old were you in 2009?
I was 21.
Okay, so not much experience. I mean, probably some. I would imagine to get your.
Aaron's
foot in
a
the door.
very old 21-year-old.
Yeah, so I mean,
He's very mature.
I moved to New York when I was 18.
Okay.
And when I was in school, I did a lot of work and stuff like that, and traveling to the city and doing like competitive, cooking competitions and whatnot. I did some work down in Florida prior to being 21. So I had some good experience. I worked at Boulet. I opened up a restaurant with Christian Delouvrier.
Cool.
I had work at the Four Seasons Hotel property down in Palm Beach, Florida. So I had a couple, feathers in my hat before I got to Bernadin, even at 21.
Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers 10,000 Hours is coming to mind right now.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
getting started
So,
early.
yeah, plus, I mean, I was, the first job I ever had, I was 14 years old. I was in the kitchen. So
At a Chinese restaurant, right?
no, I was a server at a Chinese restaurant when I was 16, but no, I was a dishwasher at an Italian restaurant called Rich and Charlie's. We called it Dick and Chuck's.
If it was an Italian or a Chinese restaurant, I don't think there's better places than a breakfast restaurant and a Chinese restaurant to short order cook to learn that process. I mean, the amount of, not easy, right? But anyway, that wasn't the case.
Yeah. So no, at the Chinese restaurant I was serving, and gave me an appreciation for the front of the house and their side of things.
Yeah. So, what happened between, I guess, 2000? So you were 21. So not much. So I guess the Bernadin, was that a goal for you? Were you trying was this were you shooting for the Bernadin? A lot of people do.
Yeah. So I had taken my resume around in 3 Michelin star restaurants when I had first moved to New York City, and so the ones that I had gotten offers from were like. I had gotten an offer from Per Se to be a commis, and they were like, "Yeah, you could work up to 6 months without getting paid." And I'm like, "My rent's $1,900 a month, and I'm broke." So
This is at a 3 Michelin star.
yeah, at the time, and so I ended up just walking around the city with my resume, and I landed on a restaurant called Boulet, which is sort of a famous restaurant down in Tribeca.
Yep.
And so
I think I've heard of it.
Yeah, I worked there for like a year and a half, and one of the guys that worked at Boulet, he started after I did, but he was a sous chef at Le Bernadin, and he was like, you really need to go to Le Bernadin next, and so he called up and got me a stage, and the rest is history.
Okay. How long were you at Le Bernadin?
About 6 years.
Okay. So you guys were pretty much together for that entire time.
I was never a sous chef with Aaron, right? I left.
No, you were for
2009 to
a period of time.
2016. Oh, you left for
but
a
I
year.
left for a little bit.
That's
So
right.
I might have been. I was a sous chef for them because we did a bunch of private events and we rocked them out. I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we crossed paths as sous chefs for a short time.
So he worked there for about a few years before I started, and then we were together for a few years. Then he left. Then I was there for maybe another year, and then I left, and then he came back.
Got it.
So I went to the Four Seasons Hotel as a restaurant chef.
Got it. So it's safe to say this is probably where you two evolved the most as professionals prior to opening your own place, with the amount of time you spent there and the responsibility you had. But correct me if I'm wrong.
I mean, I can't speak on Aaron's behalf, but I definitely Le Bernadin shaped me, my professional career. And I mean, even definitely the most out of any other restaurant job I've ever had.
So hindsight being 2020, looking back at this evolution from starting. When you started, were you a line cook?
Oh, yeah. Everyone basically starts at Le Bernadin at the bottom of the line, and you work your way up.
And you ended up as the executive director, the
creative director.
Thank you. What was that like? Your personal evolution. How did you grow? How did this galvanize who you became to open your own place?
I mean, all the lessons that I learned were not that helped me formulate Lazy Betty was not at Le Bernadin, and I would say. If you really want to be a craftsman in whatever industry you're in, it's just as important to learn what not to do as to learn what you should do. And when I left Le Bernadin to go work at another restaurant, it made me realize, this type of food is not what I want to do. It doesn't make me happy. The type of culture that this restaurant requires is not the type. Not that it was bad. It just wasn't my type of restaurant culture.
Yeah.
And it also gave me a little look into the economics of it. Right, like it was a much lower price point than Le Bernadin. and we were still doing almost the same amount of seats as Le Bernadin. But because we weren't making as much money, you didn't have as much financial resources to hire a big team, work with the product you wanted to work with. And so when I left Le Bernadin to go work at, it was called Le Colonial, the Vietnamese restaurant in the Upper East Side. I was just like, this is not the type of restaurant I want to do creatively, and financially, it doesn't support the type of restaurant that I would enjoy running.
And what kind of restaurant is that? Is that basically what Lazy Betty is today?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
So how would you describe that in a nutshell?
I mean, I liked, for me, it was important to have a high ticket average because that gave me the financial means to work with products that I really liked, not things off of a broadliner like a Cisco truck, right? We get to work with some of the finest ingredients in the country. It also attracted a certain type of professional that I wanted to work with. And also, being at Le Bernadin and this restaurant, which was open lunch and dinner, I was like, I don't want to have to be worrying about the restaurant. Like if you're open for lunch and dinner in a fine dining restaurant, you're almost working 24/7. You're probably 18/24 at that point,
you need
right?
balance.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, I can't do that. If I want to be home if I have kids in the future, I don't want to be tied to the hip to my restaurant. So that's when I was also like, well, I only want to do dinner only. And so it informed a lot of the higher level things about Lazy Betty, in terms of the type of restaurant that I wanted it to be.
So in terms of business, what you pull from Le Bernadin, maybe it's from Eric Pear. What was like something that you've definitely carried over today? That's not common.
That's not common.
Or it is common, but maybe not often.
I mean, it kind of references what Aaron alluded to earlier in the beginning of your show. Do the next right thing. Yeah. So when we were at Le Bernadin, a lot of high end these 3 Michelin star restaurants have a reputation of being ran like a military, right? Like you could be looking at the sky, and if the chef says that the sky is purple, you say yes, chef.
Yeah, right.
Right, and Le Bernadin at that time was kind of transitioning away from that. Chef Pear was very cognizant of that, and he was a firm believer of like treat your cooks right, treat the team right. Happy people make happy food and happy experiences. And we were part of that kind of evolution at Le Bernadin. And I think we have brought a lot of that too into our own restaurant here.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a culture-based company. We put people first. And so, like, the guest is always right, but, if we take care of our staff, they take care of the guests. And, that's something that people say all the time now, but we've always abided by that. And it's, a culture that's based upon respect, mutual respect. We have an open door policy here, and we really go out of our way to make sure that there's a lot of equity.
What up, Unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's the profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master of restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network. Same question to you, Aaron. In this time, this experience you had at Le Bernadin, what was your personal evolution? Like, how did you grow?
Well, I grew up there. It was my first management position that I ever got. It was the first restaurant where I started as a cook and made my way to sous chef. And so there was a lot of growth there. But, I spent my 20s in that restaurant for the most part, or the majority of my 20s. So, I did a lot of growing and a lot of a lot of learning. After Le Bernadin, I went to the Four Seasons Hotel, which is a union property. So I went from managing in a 3 Michelin star independent restaurant to managing like a 5-star, 5-diamond resort, but a union property, which is obviously
It's a different experience.
very different. And so I did it on purpose because I wanted to learn.
Good
I was
for
like,
you.
okay, I learned how to manage in an environment like Le Bernadin. Now let me learn how to manage in an environment where it's the opposite. And so,
But both with very high standards.
yeah, exactly. But while having to maintain the standards. So, that was, I learned the two sides of management there.
Got it. I mean, it's a totally different like that union hotel, like cooking and in volume too. I mean, how many seats was Le Bernadin?
Oh man, if
It was
you,
large,
If
wasn't
you
it?
counted,
I don't remember.
dude. If you counted the PDRs, which by the time I left for my second time, that you could easily do 1,000 covers a day,
Wow.
and everyone's doing a tasting menu. So
Wow.
if you take 1,000 covers and average out maybe 7.5 plates a person, I mean that's over 7,000 plates of food. you're
That's
putting.
crazy. So you're used to volume then. That wasn't.
Yeah.
As soon as I said it, I was like, I think they have high volume at Le
Super.
Bernadin.
I don't know if this is factual, but I would guess, I'm willing to put some money on that Le Bernadin is probably the highest volume 3 Michelin star restaurant in the world.
Yeah, it's not
I
easy.
mean,
but
definitely in the U.S. without a doubt.
Yeah, it's up there for sure.
I think that's one of the. I mean, they do a lot of stocks, and I know fish is kind of what he's known for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that easier to do in volume? Or-
Oh no, fish is much more forgiving.
I'm not a chef, clearly.
No, fish is much more forgiving. A fish will go over from perfectly cooked to overcooked in a minute.
You mean unforgiving?
Unforgiving.
Yeah, sorry, unforgiving. Yeah. So it's like
Dries out fast.
Yeah, so in terms of the symphony that has to happen between front and the back of the house, they got to be in sync.
Yeah.
If anywhere along that line from cooking the food to serving it, there's a lapse. Like at a 3 Michelin star restaurant, it matters between something that's cooked and overcooked. You have
Right.
very discerning palates, and you have a lot of critics eating.
Right.
So
Everyone's a critic today.
yeah, everyone is a critic.
So back to Aaron. What was that balance like again? Share that balance. The balance between. It escaped my mind. I want to come back to it. I got
the Four Seasons
Yeah.
managing style.
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
Bernadin.
So, it worked well for me because I wanted to learn how to at Le Bernadin. It's like if you're a chef and you tell somebody like jump, they say how high.
Right.
Whereas like if you go to a union hotel and if you say jump, they go and get their delegate and then yell at you in an office. And so it's like learning how to get people to jump without telling them to, developing those soft skills has really helped me today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. We should unpackage that more as we go, but I want to start going down this path to get to where you are today with Lazy Betty. So 2016, what's going through your mind? Ron, this is your vision? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, so Lazy Betty. I mean, Aaron and I had always talked about opening a restaurant together. We did a series of pop-ups in New York City at the bar that we would frequent a lot in K-Town. We befriended the owners, and they were like, "Yeah, you want to do a pop-up here? Go for it." And then we transitioned from pop-ups to supper clubs at some people's houses around Manhattan. So it was always a dream to work together. But I at that point around 2016, I started getting very serious with my current wife now, and we were like, "Man, what are we gonna do with our future?" And I was like, "I kind of want to move back to Atlanta to open up my restaurant."
Kind of crazy how that works. You got a
Yeah.
plan. And you're like, I got to figure it out. I'm headed this way. And that's when they come into your life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she kind of instigated it, right? It was like, hey, like we're getting serious. We were living together, and I was also, I enjoyed my time at Le Bernadin, but it wasn't as fulfilling as I would like, and
Yeah.
I always knew that I needed to open up my own restaurant. And at that point, I was like, I know in terms of the financials, the kind of restaurant I wanted to open, it was more than adding the color to the restaurant. Like, what kind of ambiance did we want to curate in the restaurant? What kind of people did we want to serve? And so that all those signs kind of just pointed me back to Atlanta.
So are you from Atlanta originally?
Yeah. I'm born and raised in Atlanta.
Okay.
And like if you have come to dine in at Lazy Betty, we want people to have small talk between our team and our guests. We want them to, because I'm a firm believer that small talk is what can lead to meaningful connections and deeper
Absolutely.
Conversations. Where in New York, you have the CEO of like all these Fortune 500 companies eating, and they're like, we're trying to make a business deal. We don't want that small talk, which is fine. Nothing wrong with it.
Right.
But for me, I wanted that in my restaurant, and I just thought the Southern hospitality that is in Atlanta was conducive to that. Also financially, you could raise a lot less money to open up the restaurant. So that's what led me to go back to Atlanta, work with and work with my siblings who also have had a hand in opening up the restaurant. And once I came up with that idea, I actually just was like, Aaron, let's go get lunch. He brought his then partner, and I think I brought my current wife out. And I was like, hey, Aaron, just wanted to let you know, man, I've decided to move back to Atlanta. I'm going to open up this restaurant. And then Aaron was like, aren't you going to ask me? And I'm like, ask you what? Like, I'm not going to ask you to uproot your life, sell your house, whatever, and like move to Atlanta. But he was like, yeah, let's do it. And then literally a month after I moved, he calls me and is like, I'm like, hey, how's New York treating? He's like, dude, I moved to Atlanta. I was like, all right, we're doing this.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So
I had a condo and everything.
Yeah. I was like, Aaron's not going to uproot his wife and his house.
I was thinking that's a big pace of change, or speed of change, to going from New York to Atlanta. I mean, it's a very busy city, Atlanta, but it's a little more spread out. No offense to anybody in New York, I have a lot of opportunities in New York, and I do wide circles around that city because it's so hard to get my camper in and out of that city. I'm like, I do not know where I'm going to park. Like, I got to just go spend 2 weeks there, but it's a lot to navigate. It's a very busy, bustling city. It takes a special person to live there.
Yeah.
I had visited down here once before I decided to move. And I remember he took me to like different sites around Atlanta, but it was February and it was 72 degrees. So I was just like, fuck it.
He's going back to 6 inches of snow in New York.
Yeah. I was like, if I never see a snowflake again, it would be too soon.
You're telling me. I'm from New Hampshire and living in the camper. I didn't winterize the camper this year, and we had a couple of like negative 10-degree days, and I was going through propane. I was keeping that thing heated. I was getting worried. It's nice to be down here, but I digress. So, okay, so you guys make the choice, come down here. I think what you did is really smart. I say this often. I don't think you need to go to New York or to San Francisco or to Miami or Chicago anymore to do amazing things with food. I think that's pretty common knowledge now. You're like, ever since 2007, people can see what's happening in those cities and they want it in their city. Bring it to the smaller markets. Not to say that Atlanta is a small market, but you could go to Dayton, Ohio with this and, do something, right? I think that it's the opportunities in the smaller markets right now where you can be a bigger fish in a smaller market.
Yeah.
That was the idea.
That was kind of the idea.
Yeah. So how much money did you guys need to raise?
We ended up raising all in, I think, $725,000.
$725,000. Where was the first location?
It was in East Atlanta in a historic neighborhood called Candler Park.
And I don't know the market well, but is that like an affluent market?
It's fairly affluent. I think if you were to look at the average household income, I think they would fall between maybe 6 and 8.
Okay.
Roughly. Yeah.
And what about like rent? Was it an expensive place or was there?
No, rent was very good. We didn't get any TI.
But the building sucked.
But the building sucked. We dealt with a bunch of structural issues, leaks in the ceiling, leaks in the walls.
How old was the building?
Oh man,
Old.
Yeah, I'm gonna say probably at least 80 to 90 years old.
Okay,
roughly. And it was a converted garage.
Right, and these are the things you don't learn at culinary school.
Oh no.
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 So how many seats?
The old restaurant, I
About
think,
52.
was
50.
48 to 52.
So again,
Depending on how many chairs were
Depending
broken
on how
in.
the reservations broke down. Yeah.
So of the 750,000, you said you had
725.
25,000. Where did the majority of that go?
550 of it went into the building and furniture, the FF&E and the general contract. So
Got
the changing over of the space.
What percentage of that went into the space?
Of the 525,000,
Yeah.
all of it.
All of it.
All
Okay,
of it.
wow.
Yeah.
And does that include money that you put in, or is that just money you raised?
Yeah, both. Aaron and I put basically our life savings into it, and that. So, do you mind if I share, or do you not want to share these numbers?
I don't care.
All right. So Aaron and I contributed, I believe, 77,000 together of that 725, and then the rest was raised through a combination of private investors and. Now they're private. What were my siblings who were they helped us conceptualize the concept, but once we opened, then they stepped off.
Okay,
if that makes sense.
Yeah. So what do your siblings do? That are they like architects?
They're also in the restaurant industry.
Okay.
And so we kind of leverage their network and their current restaurant to help kind of basically facilitate our pop-up. So we did pop-ups for about a year and a half. And during the process of the pop-ups is when we did the fundraising, the real estate scouting, the marketing, the branding, all that kind of, all the things that a chef normally doesn't have to do to get a restaurant going.
Is the stuff, like, what did you learn in terms of, like, what advice you have for this fundraising? Like, how much of what you did also contributed from, like, the actual grind of you guys just doing it, but also you got this reputation coming from where you came from. Did you pull on that at all?
I mean, the reputation certainly helped, but that, being a sous chef at Bernadin and learning how to cook fish did not teach me how to come up with a pro forma.
Right.
Or understand marketing and branding.
Yeah, that's where Restaurant Unstoppable comes in.
Yeah, exactly. I wish I was listening to your podcast back then.
I've never really been great at self-promotion. Actually, I wasn't even around until 2013.
Yeah, so during that 3 years was my evolution of going from an executive chef to an entrepreneur. And that's... I mean, I had to take a crash course in finance, right?
Yeah.
Like I never knew how to use an Excel sheet. And one of the biggest things that my wife taught me was like, hey, if you click on this little square at the bottom right of the cell and just drag it over, it copies your formula across all these. And I'm like, holy crap, that just saved me 8 hours a day of inputting a formula in each cell, right?
Yeah. I mean,
and I had tons and tons of coffee talks.
I still don't know how to use Excel.
Yeah. But anyway, so that during that process, I had tons and tons of coffee talks with developers, commercial real estate brokers, my network that was investors. But I knew they want to invest, but they weren't going to invest until they felt like I had a sound business plan.
Yeah.
And so
pro formas.
So it was a lot of like, well, Ronald, if these are the numbers you're telling me, I can't do it because of this.
Yeah.
Then I had to go back and be like, well, what can I push and pull to make it attractive?
Yeah. I gotta plug Stephanie Robson real quick, former professor at Cornell University. We did a 3-part series on business planning and developing a pro forma.
Yeah.
If you go to restaurantstoppable.com/Stephanie Robson, you can get that entire playlist of all the workshops I've done with her. Powerful stuff. What was it? It was a pro forma budgeting. Also, we did back of house layout and front of house layout, all 3-part workshops. It's powerful shit. Ron, Aaron, were you trying to jump in?
No.
Well, Ron has been doing a lot of talking up to this point. So while this is going on, like, what's going on in your world? Like what were your struggles and tribulations going through this?
Well, I mean, I went from being basically the creative director of the Four Seasons Hotel in New York City and their restaurant chef. So I was running a fine dining restaurant to moving to Atlanta and being unemployed. And so I got jobs. I didn't want to take any management positions because I knew that we had something under construction. So I was taking cook jobs and things like that. And so that was a struggle, kind of humbling myself to go backwards in that regard, even if it be short term. And then just the uncertainty of when's the restaurant going to open? Are we going to be successful? But, I think I was 29 when we started the project. So I think there was some naivety to me, and which was kind of good because I couldn't see failure. Yeah. I only saw
ignorance is bliss, huh?
Yeah. I only saw the path through the trees. Yeah. So to speak. And so, now being older and going through some successes and some failures, being a little bit more jaded, the idea of just opening up another restaurant is almost seems insane.
Yeah. I'm looking at the clock. We have about 30 minutes left with Ron before he has to leave. You can go a little bit beyond 4 o'clock, you said?
Sure. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to try to, because I know there's some specific things you wanted to talk about today that I want to make sure we get that out. So we'll focus, and then when he has to balance, we'll come back to you.
I'm fine.
So I want to make sure it comes out of the conversation, like the things that you learned in that 3 years, Ron, that you would just wish somebody told you, like, look out for these things. Like, what were the hard lessons learned that you wish you had a little foresight about during that 3 years?
I mean, I wish how to be a good business partner, good business partner. Aaron and I always had a very well-defined relationship working at Le Bernadin together. But when you're just kind of partnering into a new business, it's a lot of uncharted territory and a lot of roles and responsibilities that you didn't know you would have to fulfill.
What were the biggest rules and responsibilities that just caught you off guard?
I mean, it wasn't even anything to do with the restaurant operations. It was how am I going to formulate the high level business partnerships, and how, so the final pro forma and capital raise we ended up on was probably in its 4th or 5th iteration. So I would say that was probably the biggest obstacle, or the thing that I wish I learned more about, or knew more about. Because I knew I could cook. I knew I could run a kitchen or a restaurant, but I did not know anything about really how to raise money.
Where'd you go to learn all this?
A ton of coffee talks with. I had so what really helped me is my friend and investor in Lazy Betty, Greg Levito, he works in finance. He sent me a deck that he had gotten because he was getting a ton of investment opportunities. Like, Ronald, if you want to open up something with me, you got to present me something like this.
Yeah,
and I basically try to emulate the same thing.
If you're looking to raise close to $1 million, open a restaurant, factor in a lawyer's salary, but a lawyer and an accountant, and that having like those two people on your team, what's an extra $100,000 on $725,000 to like get a year of having those people in your corner that will just they know exactly what to do. Like, how much time are you going to save, right? Do you agree or disagree with this?
Wholeheartedly. I was very fortunate that I was able to lean into my brother and sister's network. So they had a lot of things in place that we just had to streamline into our operations. Like their accountants, their lawyers, and so that helped a lot.
Yeah.
But that being said, running a barbecue restaurant as opposed to a fine dining dinner only tasting menu, there's still a lot of intricacies that don't cross over from one concept to the other.
So was it a barbecue joint before you guys took over?
No, that was just my brother's restaurant.
Oh, okay.
That so they had things like, oh, this is our projection. I'm like, well, we're going to make everything from scratch at Lazy Betty. We're also not going to be open for lunch and dinner or do catering. So the 20% you're allocating to your sales for catering, we're going to basically have is going to be non-existent within our business model. They also had a ton of revenue streams, right? Being that they're more casual
catering,
catering, takeout.
I mean, that was one of the biggest lessons I've learned with this podcast is that I think a lot of people who are passionate about food have this like vision, this their dream restaurant, and they go for it early. And I don't know that that's necessarily the wrong thing to do, but it's definitely the hard thing to do. Where if you start with something that is more like barbecue restaurant, for example, that is consistent. It's about dialing it in and making it something that you can do day over day, and something that you can scale, something that you can put somebody in place, and have a cash, something that's generating cash flow, right? Mm-hmm. So that you have something to live off of, and that you can build systems and processes around, so you can do your creative thing. But you need the cash cow. Where do you fall on that thought?
Well, you're absolutely right. I would say
I'll tell you what Fred Castellucci said in 2 seconds after you.
How's this? For us, we have to push the boundaries, right? At the end of the day, the type of dining and experience that we offer, your diners are expecting you to push the boundaries. But that being said, you cannot be so stubborn that you're going to die on that hill. If you're just going to keep beating, like I forgot, there was a dish something with kumquats I was working on, and I probably tried it 20 times, and I'm like, this is a waste of my time and money and product. And then you have to let go of your pride and be like, this isn't going to work, and just give up on it, right? Like, because sooner or later you got to pay the rent.
Right.
And so you push the boundaries. You got to know where you're at, and before you just got to admit defeat.
Yeah. Fred pushed back a little bit on me. He basically said, yes, but you also need that passion, because without the passion and that drive, no matter if it's barbecue or fine dining, it won't be enough, because you have to be the best at whatever you do.
Yeah, he's right.
And I agree with that. I think there's a level of balance you have to find of like there's that quantitative versus qualitative and the pragmatic approach of you can't, like, to your point, die on the hill. You got to figure out what also makes money.
So this was a big.
That being said, it's not all about the money.
Yeah, it's not.
Well, it's not all about the money. I agree, but you still have to pay the bills and provide security to your team and create opportunity for growth.
So this was probably the
right.
biggest conflict I had with my siblings when we were discussing. Being that I was the main driver I guess I was the managing partner or the managing officer per the operating agreement, that I was constantly negotiating with my siblings. Was like, Ronald, we know what kind of background you're from. We have to know that you're not going to die on this hill of trying to provide the best experience, cuisine, food with the most elaborate techniques when we're in the red and we have only $10,000 left in the bank account. And I was like, okay, I understand that, but I'm also not going to shoot myself in the foot and not push the boundaries. Right. And so, it was always this tug of war with them.
Yeah,
about that.
It's a struggle. Go
the
ahead.
passion. So what I was saying more when it's not about the money, it was more towards like what Fred Castellucci said, where it's about that passion. You got to be passionate about it. Otherwise, when things get tough, it's too easy to quit.
If you have the right why, you can deal with any how.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah,
yeah,
and I 100% agree. It's not nothing's simple about this. Finding that balance is hard for sure. I mean, it's simple, but it's hard, right?
I mean, even like a burger shop, you can make the best burger possible.
Yeah,
and so, when we recognize that something may be too hard for us to execute, it's like, all right, we can accept that, but when we accept that limit, we're gonna execute at that limit the best we possibly can.
Yeah. Got you. Okay, so 2019 you opened. How long did it take you to get into the black?
What do you mean by the black?
Out of operating in the red?
Yeah.
We
were operating in the black almost immediately.
Okay.
Now that means hitting debt schedule.
So hitting debt schedule?
Yeah, like paying off the debt. The $725,000.
So not just profiting, but also paying back the note that you owed.
Well, yeah. Well, we were using the profit to pay back the note that we owed.
Yeah,
but we were able to hit that immediately.
Yeah, the way we structured the raise was we gave a preferred return to our investors and said, hey, any profit we do make, you guys get all. They get all the profits until they made whole.
And you were making? Were you getting owners' pay?
Yeah, I mean, yes, Aaron and I. You mean like
you're on the payroll?
Yeah, we were on the payroll, but we weren't getting our share of the ownership stake. If that's what you mean by
so you weren't taking any profit, but you were on the payroll. You were paying yourself.
Yeah, we were paying our the sweat equity part of our involvement warranted a salary that we paid ourselves.
What was your labor? Was it 30% in the early days?
It was actually very low.
Okay,
Aaron and I consciously took very low salaries at the beginning. I mean, I think what was our maybe 36%
out of the both of you was 30%
combined. No, combined in the whole restaurant.
So our labor has always been high, like on the healthy P&L. Like you talked about prime cost. Like our prime cost is always skewed more towards
higher labor
because
fine dining.
People are like, "Oh, you charge $28 for a cucumber." I'm like, "You're right. The cucumber is not the expensive part.
How did it get here?
It's what we have to do to the cucumber to make you pay $28 for it. That's the expensive part.
It's 6 weeks of R&D that we put behind it, and
it's always going to be labor heavy on our side.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, do you mind sharing prime cost split between cost of goods and labor?
Right now, we're looking at around our goals for this year are 44% for labor.
Okay.
Or maybe 42.
40.
It's either 42 or 44.
Okay.
So, I tried to put it at 40.
Yeah. But I think on
it's
paper
a tough market right now.
Yeah. On paper, I believe it's on 42.
Okay.
But we incentivize our team to hit 40% for labor.
Cost of goods still shooting for 30?
No, that goes way down. We aim for 20%.
Okay.
For food,
so that's how you figure it out.
Yeah, for food, because we put so much manpower behind the food, we have very low food costs. And for a beverage, it's 22% cost.
Okay. So you're at about 64% prime cost. Is that my?
Is that
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
but we try to hit closer to 60.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tough world right now. Let's just be clear about that. And it's getting and it's so awkward talking about this stuff. The whole reason why I'm talking about it is because I don't know of another platform out there that is getting people to divert. Why can't I
Divulge.
Thank you very much. Divulge that information. And I think it's why a lot of people get into trouble because we're so closed doors. We don't have any benchmarks. When do we know if we're on? And okay, if I'm a fine dining restaurant, I need to do 60% and that's 30-30. No. You need to figure it out and to go, you got to find that balance of 60 or close to it. And the cost of goods is up, labor is up. So I think what has to happen is we got to start charging more. And I think that the consumer needs to realize, to your point, it's not a Q fucking cumber. It's all this shit that we did before that. But our job is to transport the guest so that it's meant to be so they are oblivious. They're not supposed to know. That's what it's all about. But we're too good at it, and they are clueless.
Yeah.
You know?
So we're not charging for the cucumber, though. At the end of the day, what we're charging for is the experience, the whole experience.
Right. Yeah, it's intellectual property.
Yeah, they're not supposed to know how hard you worked.
Yeah, it's for us, it's back to the value. And does our experience meet the value? And that's everything from when somebody goes online and looks at our website to when they call in to check and see if it's okay, if they're a vegetarian, to when they're greeted and when they get their coat, when they're on their way out the door. All of those things add into our total experience, and that justifies our price point.
But it would also say the reason why we skew towards higher labor and lower food costs or cost of goods sold is because that's the style of operation Aaron and I want to run. We also feel like, the more oversight you have, the less potential for a subpar product will go onto the dining room floor, right? And we also want to give ourselves enough hands in the front of the house or back of the house to execute the things we want to execute.
Yeah, so we also run basically a zero waste program, so that's why our food cost is lower.
And we can hit it. Yeah,
because that program that we run, but that costs labor to run a zero waste program.
Yeah. And that's what you learn at Bernadin, because I know he was a master at that too.
The systems at Bernadin were crazy. Yeah, very good systems.
Okay, so in terms of that split before moving here, were those your same targets? 42 labor, 22, 40 labor, 20 cost of goods.
I was never privy to that information at Bernadin.
No, I'm talking about
our
before,
cost of goods.
Not this location.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Also,
generally.
side note, no offense to Le Bernadin or Eric Repair. You weren't privy to that information as the executive chef
or the creative director. No.
I think that's another part of the issue is we need to do a little bit more open book management and teach this stuff. So our team, sorry, Aaron, were you going to say something along those lines, or did I cut you short? I feel like.
No, I'm good. We can.
No, get it out, man. Get it out.
Well, I think the question was, were those our goals in the old space?
Yeah.
Did you lose it? They always. Yeah, I mean, those have been our goals. Yeah.
I mean, we've had to recalibrate our goal.
That's kind of what I'm curious about.
Yeah, so we've literally are coming up on our 1 year anniversary in this new space, and Aaron and I literally did this 6 weeks ago, where we looked at it, how we've been performing in the new space, and we've reset our goals for this year. But in terms of the trends, we're still trending high on labor. We've added a higher split between private events and our dining room sales. And we're just trying to skew that even more because we do have more private dining opportunity here. So they have evolved.
Yeah.
I remember now. I was going to get back into the COGS a bit. So
please,
our COGS are now, we do about 75% food sales only, about 25% beverage sales, maybe 30% beverage sales.
Sometimes.
Our beverage costs, because we're taking alcohol, and even though we have a well-curated program, we put a lot of effort into it. Besides cocktail, if somebody comes in and they buy a bottle of water, we're only charging so much more. So our COGS are higher on beverage than they are on food.
Yeah.
So When you combine those two, I think our goals are closer to like 22 or 24%.
Got it.
So not quite 20.
What up, unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's the profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master of restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network. I mean, I'll be completely transparent and honest. Like this stuff, I have been afraid to push the envelope on this stuff out of respect. I didn't want to. I don't know how much information people are willing to share, or how much. Like, I don't think that this will hurt you in your business by putting this information out there. So I'm still learning a lot too with this stuff. But I love the lead with that curiosity, and I think the more of these conversations I'm having, the more benchmarks I'm getting, and I think this is just super helpful. So thank you guys so much for being willing to do that. We have about 12 minutes before you have to hit the road.
I might be able to stretch that a little bit for you.
Well, I know one of the things that is really important to you, you have some hierarching things, that initiatives that you're taking in terms of creating awareness about pay gap disparity. And I know you also want to talk about you're taking some initiative with just creating awareness about inclusion and diversity too. Or did I get that right?
Yeah, well, we do that through a very unique wage model. And this was something that, it just working at all these fine dining restaurants in my career, there was always a pay disparity between the front and the back of the house. And I think, one of the epiphany that I had was when there was a new host starting at this restaurant, making just as much as the most senior line cook who had been there for, I don't know, 2.5 years. And I'm like, that
what's going on?
Yeah,
here?
like that senior line cook is literally making 80 to 90% of something that every table in the restaurant is touching, whereas the host is literally just saying hi and taking them to the table and leaving, right?
Yeah.
And for me, that was just something that Aaron and I both would kind of been, let's change that. So we implemented like a service charge model at the restaurant.
How's that going for you guys?
I think it goes great.
Good. I'm happy to hear that.
Very well.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't easy to roll off, not just for our staff, but also for the Atlanta market, because it's such a unique wage model. People at first was like, why are you making me pay an extra 20% on top of the food and beverage bill? And then the way we divvied up that 20% amongst the staff. So and in order to alleviate that pay disparity, we gave the back of the house a cut of that 20%.
Got it.
So they make more money when we're busier.
Yeah.
Traditionally, whether you do 10 covers or you do 1,000 covers, the cooks make a certain amount per hour. Whereas now it's like when the restaurant's busy, everybody's jazzed up because everybody's making more money.
Yeah.
When the restaurant's slow, they understand that if they stay on the service pool, they're diluting it. So people are more likely to be like, "Oh, it's slow. I'll take a cut."
Yeah. I mean, this is a very sensitive subject. There's a lot of people that are advocating to keep tipping owners and front of house employees, are really arguing, lobbying to not get rid of tipping. And then on the flip side, it's like there is no other way to do it equitably. So I lean in the direction that I think that the answer is so obvious that we just need to eliminate tipping. If there's any law that's passed, just eliminate tipping. And then the argument is, well, people won't come out anymore. I'm like, they're already paying 15 to 20% on top of the bill anyway, you would hope. The majority of people, right?
Yeah.
So is it really going to hit the consumer that much differently? Or if it does, how long is that that griping going to last before they just get the fuck over it? Pardon my language.
I mean, I think the consumer just likes to have an element control and a mechanism to ensure that they have good service.
Right.
Right. But half the times you go out to dine, the server doesn't. There are things that are out of the server's control that will ruin the experience, such as like in the old space, we had to comp many bills when the roof was leaking on a rainy day, and it ruined the lady's cashmere dress, right?
Yeah.
That had nothing to do with the server. So, having this service charge eliminates that. It gives our employees a safer work environment where they know that they're going to make a certain amount of money. It also promotes team unity. Like one mantra that Aaron and I have a lot is like this: our restaurant is not a front of the house or back of the house; it is a one house, right? And the way that people get paid is reflective of that. In many restaurants, you have sections in a restaurant in terms of how the waiters are divvied up in the dining room, right? Like, for example, you may have 4 servers serving in a 30-seat restaurant where they're all taking about 7.5 tables a night or per section. And they're only going to get the tips that are from that section. Well, then if that person is in the weeds and the other server needs help and they may be like, hey, can you grab water from my table? They're going to be like, nah, fuck off.
Yeah.
I'm not getting that tip.
Right.
Where here it's like, well, if someone from table 21 asks the server who is not from their section but happens to catch their eye and gets their attention and asks them for water or a refill, that person is not going to be de-incentivized to provide good service.
Right.
So it just promotes team unity, a team culture, and it most certainly helps with the pay disparity as well.
Yeah.
It also ensures that a tip comes through.
Yeah.
Right.
And our staff doesn't put out great service and then get stiffed.
And with that being said, too, we also do not allow additional gratuities. So
Right.
And we make that very apparent to the customer or to our guests that, hey, just to let you know, all the F&B that you order does include 20% on top of in the price already. But if you feel compelled to leave more, we will be very grateful,
Yeah.
right? But we say that everywhere, like no need to leave us extra unless you feel compelled to or want to.
So the other pushback I hear too is that you won't be able to attract onto yourself good servers or good help if you eliminate tipping.
Oh no, not for us. I mean, our staff loves it because they know like it doesn't matter if they're I mean, you have to have a level of execution to do that, right? And offer certain experience. So it doesn't fit every restaurant. Like in McDonald's, you're not going to just add 20% because they're not offering any service. So for us, it attracts a certain type of employee. And once they come in and they see how it works, we have very low staff turnover.
I would say that, like, just like how the guests come and they're paying for a value, for an experience, not a cucumber or not a glass of water. They're paying for the total experience. Same thing with our internal guests, our employees. I refer to them as our internal guests. We're providing an experience. So it's not even just about their paycheck. It's about that whole one house mentality, the flexibility that we have with them when they have something going on, the resources that we'll use from our company to try to help people out that are in need. There's a lot of reasons why people want to work here besides the pay model. And so,
I mean, it's also a conscious decision for us to, like us doing a service charge. Technically, the city or the state looks at it as a sale, so we actually get taxed on it.
Well, that was the next thing I was curious about. Is now they're trying to do away in some states with the eliminating tax on tips.
Yeah.
So
there's also some legislation being introduced that would allow restaurants that have a service charge to not be taxed on that part of their sales.
Okay.
Which is what we would love.
Yeah. So, but I don't think it's passed anywhere yet. But, so if you want to get into the numbers, we actually make less money because we do that. But for us, it provides such a better work environment and work culture.
Right. Especially that balance between the front of house and back of house.
That's right.
We believe it's the next right thing.
That's right.
It is. I mean, I've seen like servers talk about this and argue like I make so much less money when we eliminate tips and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, you are so one-sided to this argument. Like, who's cooking the food that you're delivering? Like, how good are your tips going to be when the product that you're selling is garbage? Like, you have to take that into consideration.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, with that being said, we are a prefix menu. So before one of the, a server's primary job is to sell food and beverage, right? But when they come and eat at Legs Du Betty, they're committing to a tasting menu that's already going to constitute probably 75 to 80% of their bill. So they're already they're not having to sell.
They're already sold.
It's already sold.
You're not upselling.
And so that's also part of the reason why it works for us.
Right. That's an important variable.
Yeah, it's very important. So
yeah. I think you're bringing something up that's really important. There is no two restaurants that are exactly the same.
Yeah.
And I think that's another real part of the conversation. In some places, it just might make sense to have a tipping model. And I think it's not a simple answer. And I try to be open-minded to everything I hear. And I don't know. I don't know the answer, but I'm curious. Like, what do you think needs to happen in order for us to move in this direction? Like, what has to be the fundamental change?
I mean, it's got to start with policy first and foremost. I mean, you can try to change as many minds as you want, but Aaron and I both know, man, people are who they are, right? Like, but if you really want to initiate change, it's got to start with policy. But what's most important is that you got to have smart policymakers in place, and it's like what you said. It's not one size fits all, right? There's so many different types of restaurants. The policy has to be constructed in a way that it allows operators to choose what best works for them.
How many policymakers do you think have worked in restaurants?
72%.
Is that really? Wait, what?
I'm going to say 3.
I'm going to
That's very
say
specific.
I'm going to say 72% of all Americans
no.
have worked in a restaurant at some point in their life. So I'm going to stick with that 72%.
I mean, it's a good cut, right? It's a nice slice out of the demographic.
I mean, if you pay law of averages, you might be pretty close.
Yeah.
So, Ron, a question I ask all my guests before they have to depart,
Yeah.
and I want to give you the opportunity to answer this before we say goodbye. Who do you respect and admire in the industry? And this is how I find future guests. This is really my North Star. If I got this person or these people on the show, you would absolutely subscribe to this podcast.
Fred Castellucci.
I'm doing well. Yeah.
I got to go with Eric Repair. I mean, he not only did I learn a tremendous amount in the kitchen on how to cook and how to create the symphony between front of the house and the back of the house, but just if you take it even higher level from a human perspective, right? Like from him wanting to change the kitchen culture of being like a military to being more kindness based, merit based, instead of just do what I tell you, right? I've seen him I was very lucky enough to see him interact with people that were restaurant adjacent, and the way he carried himself taught me a lot too. Be a professional, be courteous, shake people's hands. I remember when I was 1 week into the restaurant, he came by and knew my name, and I'm like, damn,
that's impressive.
You have 55 cooks in this kitchen, and you knew my name 1 week into my stint here.
Wow.
So I learned a lot from him, and I would say the biggest lessons that I learned weren't even food related. It was more just be a good person.
Behind every great restaurant,
Yeah.
is a great person.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
Like that. That is true over and over again. And I guess I have to go to New York with my camper. You know what? I think he'll be worth it. I can't escape New York. If you have to get going, I totally understand. Hopefully, Aaron, you don't mind staying on a little bit longer to talk about where you guys are today.
Yeah, sure. It's fine.
And I'm really good at, if you give me a hard stop, I can work with that.
No, I mean, we got to clean up and
Yeah. Tell me when you want to be out of here. We'll be done. It's 4:00 now. You can tell my recording style is very loose.
Yeah, let's do 4:15.
4:15? Okay, cool. I can work with that.
I could probably stick around to 4:15.
Okay.
I already gave my...
Ronnie's going to stay.
But
All
I'm
right,
going
then-
to 4:15.
All right, cool. We can make this happen. Sorry, it's a long format podcast, guys.
you're
I
good,
appreciate you being willing to work with me here. So, okay, let's go to where you are today. Let's kind of paint the picture. Where are you today? You have this new private dining space. You guys are trying to build that. We talked about that. Is there anything that hasn't come out of today's conversation in terms of what you've learned, what you can pay forward, what you want to see change in the industry? I just dropped a lot on you guys.
Well, there's a lot of seasonality to the industry.
Yep.
I would like to see if I could develop a trend. It would be obviously more business is always, people always want that, but a more consistency throughout the months. So the fourth quarter and the first quarter don't look so different. If I could see some more continuity to the business levels, that'd be great.
Well, do you think you're going to influence consumer behavior, or do you think you need to change the model to slide to accommodate the consumer during those times?
I think it's probably an unreasonable wish that I have, but
I'm glad you acknowledged it.
yeah, it's an unreasonable wish.
It's a dream.
It's a dream. Yeah, you asked I believe you said the word if I wish. If I had a wish,
Right.
that would be my wish. Is that
Well, you do see people that what they do to address that is they go intentionally to seasonal places. They have places in the mountains that they take their crew, their ski bum crew people, and then in the summer they're on the beach and they take the crew to the beach and they're beach bums, and they play the seasons and it works out.
do they have kids?
No, not that I know of. So I mean,
I got 3.
Yeah. What about one thing I do like to talk about is tech stack. I think you need technology today. It's not enough to be good chefs and deliver good service. You have to lean on technology to kind of help with those costs, right? To do more with less. Are you guys leveraging technology?
Yeah, so we have our systems and stuff like that that we use. We have reservation platforms. We have the technology as far as audio goes. We have our
So like sound system.
yeah. I'm just gonna go down the list of technology stuff. I mean, you have the
you should talk about our camera system, right?
All this stuff is really
Expo,
good.
how we use
Yeah,
a
we
camera
use-
for Expo.
yeah. So we use a camera in the kitchen, and every room has at least 1 or 2 cameras.
What's the service you guys? This is my research for the record. So this is what listening to what you guys say puts new tools and technologies. A lot of what I refer is all based off of what people are saying, so I can help good people connect with good people. So if you can think of the companies you're working with, that'll help.
Yeah,
my
I
research.
think it's in Guardian or
They use an app. I think it's called High Tech, but they just use the app. It's a local company that set up our network in terms of the cameras.
super important though.
yeah, but we
Yeah.
use it to be able to see, like when I'm in the kitchen, I can see tables 62 and 63, which are these 2 tables pushed together. I can be like, oh, it's a 6 top, but there's only 5 people sitting there. Somebody's in the bathroom. Hold table 62. Slow down.
It's a live
sight
feed.
lines.
It's a live feed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about this with Stephanie Robson and the importance of being able to have sight lines in your restaurant. But when you have cameras, it kind of gives you that like secret weapon to be like, oh wait, they're looking around for their server at that table, like somebody go over there.
Yeah, like I can tell, oh, they have a wine pairing, and I see a sommelier is at the table talking, and I see that there's no food in front of them, but they have silverware. So I'm like, oh shit, the wine pairing's going down. They're cleared, they're marked, they've got wine. The server forgot to fire the table. I'm going to go ahead and fire table 43, and then even though the server forgot to hit the fire button, the guest is not going to know that we made a mistake, and it could be something on our end as well.
Yeah, another thing that we've done that doesn't really translate to guest experience, and this was kind of spearheaded by Aaron too, was we have a ton of equipment that I would say about 6 weeks ago we started putting. I don't know what it is. I think it's some sort of magnet that can monitor the performance of every high asset piece of equipment we have. So like our walk-in coolers, our stovetops. And it basically shows us how every piece of equipment is performing. And if there's ever, a delineation in the performance, we can be like, oh, wait, this delineation happened at 4 a.m. Why is it happening? Is it because the AC kicked up?
Okay.
Is it whatever?
So I can tell whether a machine is in its normal defrost cycle because I can see by the sensor.
Yeah.
Like this machine goes
Yeah.
in defrost.
At 4 a.m. every day. And we're like, oh, it's just a normal
But if
cycle.
it's-
So is it just measuring temperature?
It depends on the equipment.
All types of stuff. And we work with a third-party maintenance provider that could...
We can say them. They're RSM. We know their name.
Yeah. That could
Joke.
give much more insight into this. But
And it's a
basically,
maintenance company?
yeah, basically we monitor the health of all the machines. So like if there's a machine that goes down below temperature and stays there, it notifies our maintenance man, and he can automatically...
Is it Daymark? Is that the tool you're using? I think they do something similar. I can't keep track of all the stuff that's out there.
I don't know.
I've heard of something. It's RSM is the company you use that.
Yeah.
And that stands for Restaurant Solutions.
Service and Maintenance.
Service maintenance. Okay. And they're based here in Atlanta.
Yes, they are.
Maybe I might have another interview. with you.
It's a different approach to most restaurants react after something's broken. This is more preventative maintenance.
Can you give me a name there so I can find it?
Joe DeVita.
Joe DeVita.
Yeah, we can
Davita?
hit us up after. We can give you more,
Absolutely.
more info.
So you're using cameras. In Guardian is RSM. You mentioned audio. Is that Sonos?
No, it's just a local network.
It's just, we use systems for that. We have systems for scheduling.
What are you using for scheduling?
7 shifts.
Okay. 7 shifts, past sponsor. Thank you for your support.
All right. Yeah. So we use 7 shifts.
We use Toast for our POS. Hopefully, if they're not a sponsor, they'll be soon.
We use Resi
they've been extremely supportive in the past.
Yeah.
Lucky to have them in my corner.
Yeah. So I mean, we use the standard systems, and
we use a task management app to kind of run the high level operational things called Trello.
Trello, nice.
Yeah, we use Trello. That kind of sets the agenda every week for our upper management team. Aaron and I, we have our own Trello. Then we have a management Trello that, based off our Trello, we then develop the weekly Trello for the upper management team, and then they inform the rest of the team.
Those kind of work like cards that you kind of move left. You create a card,
that's right,
and that kind of moves along this journey of like, where is this in the, like, what is the standard operating procedure, and like, okay, a new ticket, like, where is it on its journey to being done?
That's right. You can assign due dates. You can assign. There's this feature on that says watching, right? So if like we feel, Aaron and I were like, hey, this seems to be falling by the wayside, we can click watch, and it kind of flags the action item.
Yeah. What about reservations? I have an idea of what you would be using, but I'm curious.
Well, we are currently using Resi.
Okay, but you were using...
We were always with Resi.
Okay,
We've always been with Resi.
Are you stoked about the recent purchase of Talk?
Yeah, why not? I mean, it really hasn't affected us. I think the acquisition by Amex had more of a impact on us than Resi's acquisition of Talk. But Amex acquired Resi.
Right. So I guess technically Amex purchased Talk.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So why Resi over Talk? I'm surprised because honestly I would have guessed Talk because of their prefix sliding scale. Like it seems to be engineered for more like experience-based dining versus like, reservation, like prefix versus like standard reservation.
There's a lot of metrics that were looked at.
Yeah.
But I felt... Or go ahead.
I think share perspective I might not be aware of.
I mean, this was so long ago that we had this dance between Resi, Talk, and Open Table were the 3 options. Open Table immediately was not in the running because they could not facilitate offering 2 different tasting menus, which is what we opened with. So that was immediately like, your software doesn't allow us to use you.
Eliminator.
Yeah. And then I think between Talk and Resi, we just felt that our target audience or market would be more inclined to use Resi.
Got it.
And bottom line, that's really what it was.
It would resonate.
It's a marketplace.
Yeah.
It's and I think that's one thing that these companies bring is that they bring users and habits and discoverability. So I mean, you can't argue that. There's definitely something there to that.
Yeah. We also felt that the UX with Resi was a little more friendlier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. That's like I only get to talk about this shit. I don't get to actually use it. So like I know, and there's different perspectives and different reasons to go with different platforms. So that's cool to hear. I'm curious to know when they start, if they just wanted to purchase Talk to eliminate it, or if they're looking to absorb that technology into. Like maybe they're just working on like the branding of it right now or what.
My guess, if you had to ask me my gut, it would be they bought it to kill it.
I agree with Aaron, but I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know.
Right.
Who knows?
Right.
I mean,
or maybe it's their user base. They also probably picked up a lot of new clients too.
It could be technology. Maybe Talk had some sort of technology that they wanted to integrate into their systems.
Well, the
I think it would
intellectual
make more sense to basically you're buying their users.
Yeah.
Right. I think their model, what, Nick Kokonis, I always worried I'm saying his last name, Kokonis. Sorry, Nick. What he did in the idea of basically saying, okay, why aren't we charging a premium on a Friday night at 7:30 for the seat that has way more demand than on a Tuesday?
Similar to what, like dynamic pricing?
Right.
So we actually looked into that. This was post after we committed with Resi. But Resi also did not offer that. But we've actually floated that idea. Is like, hey man, like our Fridays and Saturdays are always booked out weeks out. Maybe we should charge more.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think if anything, there's a good thing because now you can make, so if you're having like a balance, like a median, right? And you're like, say, I don't know, $200 a person is like your average, right? Well, on Tuesday, you could be like 150 or 125 a person, right?
Yeah.
And then on Friday and Saturday, you could be like 400 a person. Yeah. And now you're going to make it you're going to open up your target market to be in more reach for more people.
Yeah.
You're actually broadening your market.
I mean, yeah,
It's
supply.
a good point.
It's basic
Yeah.
economics, right? Supply and demand.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. We've covered a lot today, guys. We have 4 minutes before we got to stop the recording. Anything did not come out. Now it's time to get it out. I know you do a lot to like accommodate people with special needs too, whether it be blindness or
Culture City.
Yeah, so we are a sensory inclusive establishment. We work a lot with Culture City, which is the world's largest non-visible disability charity that there is.
Okay.
It's based out of Birmingham. We always try to do stuff that's either helping kids or helping with equity and inclusion.
Yeah. And,
So-
Well, thank you for that.
so for us, I remember, I think when we were in our old space and we did our soft opening or friends and family, a couple with a child happened to walk by our restaurant and was like, "Oh, let's come in and eat." And they brought their like 8-month-old, which was very, we remember that. And we're like, it's cool that you could bring your 8-month-old into our fine dining 10-course, 3.5-hour meal dinner. And the cool thing too is that they need to change the diaper, and we were like, "Hey, we have changing tables in our restaurants."
That's cool.
Yeah, and so that value of inclusivity is really what attracted us to work with Culture City.
Got it. I got
Yeah.
3 questions to ask you guys before we get out of here. We have just over less than 2 minutes to do it. So quick responses with these and we'll be wrapped up on time. What's one thing about your business, a value, a process, a system that's uncommon and makes you truly unstoppable?
Honestly, I think we got heart and grit. So I don't know if that's uncommon, but I think it's something that we have is heart and grit.
The mission statement is to change the world by inspiring, empowering, and transforming the restaurant industry. And I think if we can change restaurants have the ability to change communities, and it all ripples out. And what is one thing that you have personally, like what's one thing that's transformed about each of you over the years that makes you a better people today than you were when you got started?
I've become a much softer soul than I was.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, we're here to do things for other people. And so what have you done to help the people that work with you or the community that you're serving?
I love that. This is a doozy. Get your ears ready for this one. If you got the news, you'd be leaving this world tomorrow. All the memories of you, your work, and your restaurants would be lost with your departure, with the exception of 3 pieces of wisdom that you could leave behind for the good of humanity and your legacy. I don't know if you guys want to do this individually or tag team it. What would those 3 pieces of wisdom be? The eye rolls I get with this question.
Goodness.
It's survived 1,100 plus episodes though.
Repeat the question one more time.
Basically, what are the 3 pieces of advice? 3 pieces of advice you would leave behind for your legacy and the good of humanity. Things you know to be true.
I would say, do it. Put your heart into it.
1.
Yeah.
Be honest.
2.
Take care of the people around you.
3. Do you want to add another one to balance it out, or are we good? Okay, cool. This has been a lot of fun, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I did not get to ask you, Aaron, who do you respect and admire and believe would make a great guest on the show?
He had already said Eric Repair. I'm going to say Emeril Lagasse.
Ooh, man, you guys are setting the bar high. I appreciate it.
So just because, like, when I first started wanting to cook, it was, I would cook with my mom, but also I would watch Emeril's show on TV, and I just always enjoyed. It's probably the reason why I became a chef was because of him.
Did you ever get to meet him?
Yeah,
That's
I
cool.
saw him like 3 weeks ago.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Gentlemen, I literally cannot do what I do without people like you. Thank you so much for making time, letting me get super personal and intrusive into the behind the scenes world of your businesses. I'm confident that sharing this information is going to make the industry a better place. And I can't do what I do without people like you. If we enjoyed today's episode, how can we connect with you?
Find us on my Instagram is Chef Hsu, or hit us up on our website if you want to find out about Lazy Betty, lazybettyatl.com.
Yeah. Instagram, Chef Aaron Phillips.
Got it. And this is episode, I believe it's going to be 1177 if you want to find it. And this is where I say there is no questioning. You are unstoppable. Cheers.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you.